Hey ghouls, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be a weekly reading vlog. However, this weekly reading vlog is going to have a theme. Now, typically I make my themed reading vlogs like differently than how I make my weekly reading vlogs because in an average week, I'm such a mood reader that there's really not any sort of theme happening. However, just because last week, if you've seen that reading vlog, I was really in a horror mood, and this week I'm still in a horror mood. I am in a horror mood. And as I was looking through my TBR, my various TBRs, like my physical TBR and my library checkouts, my library holds like on Libby and all of that, I have quite a few brand new horror releases in my possession right now. So that is what we're going to do this week. It's going to be an entire week of new release horror. I have some physical books that I have checked out from the library. Both of these books came out in March, so I have these physical books to read. I have a NetGalley arc of Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes that came out today as I'm filming this, so I'm a little bit behind, but I have that NetGalley arc that I can read. And then in terms of the books that I have checked out from Libby at the moment, we have some exceptions to the rule, and I'm currently reading that one as well. But for the most part, everything that I have checked out is like a pretty recent horror. So I have all of those as well for my TBR, just because last week I was loving the horror I was reading, and then when I would pick up a book of a different genre, even though it was a book that I had highly anticipated, I was not in the mood. So we are sticking to horror this week. We're sticking to horror. We're picking up a brand new release horror. I think it's gonna be a good vlog because, again, I have the physical books, I have an ebook, the e-arc, and then I also have a lot of audiobooks checked out from my library as well. So it is going to be a great week. It's going to be a great week of new release horror, and I am just so excited to get into these books. So yeah, we are still going to be following my mood reader heart a little bit in this vlog because I have, like, you know, as you saw from just me discussing these books, I have about 10 to 15 books that I could read this week. I'm obviously not going to read them all this week, but I have plenty of a variety to choose from, so that's really exciting. So I think physically I'm going to choose one of these, and then I'm also going to choose an audiobook to listen to. I do have to get to work, but I will try and do an update later on, maybe today, it might be tomorrow, it might be later on today, of just what books I picked up and then a little bit of a reading update for y'all. So yeah, I'm gonna go get to work. Welcome to the vlog. We are going to have just a fun horror filled week of reads, and I will talk to y'all later with another reading update. Hey friends, happy Wednesday, coming to you live from the dog couch. There is a dog literally breathing right on my hand that's holding the camera. Hi Bruce. You're a good boy. But, you know, I figured I'd do a little check-in while we do our morning routine. Afternoon routine of Hyobi looking out the window and observing the neighborhood because exciting stuff, right? So you know the drill. When we're filming here, we're ignoring the state of the couch behind me because this is the dog's couch. It's the one place where Obi can shed and we do clean it, but not as often as the furniture that humans sit on. And let's be honest, the dogs also are allowed on our other pieces of furniture, like, you know, beds and sofas and stuff, but this couch is right by the window. It's just for them. So there's a lot of hair. I have a super shedder, so we're just going to ignore that. But this is a quick little update. Number one, my last week reading vlog, I talked about how much I loved Nestlings by Nat Kiste, and Nat Kiste commented on that video, and I am fangirling so hard. I loved Mary, I loved Nestlings, and it's weird to know that an author that I like has perceived me. So yeah, go read it if you haven't already. Go check out that vlog. I'm pretty proud of it, and the discussion about horror that was had there. But that's number one. That's what I woke up to this morning, was that notification from the author, which was so cool. Number two, I've started an audiobook, Home is Where the Bodies Are by Jeneva Rose, and this one it was one of the Libra of M's advanced listening copies for the ARC, so thank you so much, Libra of M. This one has multiple narrators, and it was on my most anticipated in terms of books that came out in April, so I'm absolutely listening to it. I'm about 13% of the way through it. It's about a group of estranged siblings. Their mother passes away, and as they're clearing through her house, like going through all their old stuff, they find some videotapes and they're like, oh great, you know, family videotapes, let's watch some of these VHSs and just reminisce on happier times when we were all kids. They start watching the tapes. However, within these family videotapes, within these family memories, there is a tape that chronicles a night that none of them remember, and they have to figure out if the secrets should stay buried with their parents or if they should unearth these secrets and what exactly happened that night. I love horror and thrillers and darker books that have to deal with like video components, like a cursed film or like a found film, any of like that sort of footage. That is so exciting to me. So I'm currently listening to this one and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm really enjoying how there are multiple narrators as well. I love when an audiobook has multiple narrators. And then when it comes to my physical book, I picked up a very whiny puppy, apparently, if you heard any of that, but The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Kiste. Obi, you're okay. And I'm not very far in this one at all. It's a suburban ghost story about a small town that trapped 3 young women who must confront the past if they're going to have a future. I'm not very far in this one at all, so I'm not sure what that entails, but I think something strange happens to the place, the town where our main character grew up, and of course Obi's like, hey, let's play with one of my squeakiest, crinkliest toys, right as my mom starts to film. So that's all the update you're gonna get for this one, because I'm only on like page 5. So, you know, I'm excited to read this one today. This will be my physical book today. I'm done with work for the day, so I will be picking this one up today, and you'll get a more substantial update about it tomorrow, I promise. But I'm looking forward to this one. I've heard good things. I've heard it's such a strange and unique ghost story, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'll stop crowding their space and let them observe the neighborhood in peace, and I will go get to reading. But I just wanted to come on here and update the vlog on what books I chose to read this week. So I will talk to y'all later with another reading update, but so far so good. I really have a good feeling about the 2 books that I've chosen. Hey friends, happy Friday. I did not update yesterday, but I did get a lot of reading done, and I also went to the library and picked up a bunch of new books, some of those being horror new releases. I did include a little bit of the library haul in the B-roll footage, but I have a feeling I'm going to pick up at least one of them this weekend. But I did get a lot of reading done yesterday, so let's go ahead and talk about the books that I'm currently in the middle of. I do plan on finishing at least one of them today, if not both. So first up, we have my audiobook Home is Where the Bodies Are by Jeneva Rose, and this one I'm definitely still enjoying. I just hit the 50% mark, so I like how it's going. It's definitely more of like a thriller pace than a horror. I know I mentioned this was like a horror slash thriller. I definitely say it leans more towards the thriller side, but I'm enjoying it. I do have a feeling that while the tapes like are kind of a part of the premise, they're not going to be like integrated as much within the tale as I would like, but that's okay. way. It's definitely fast-paced and I'm enjoying the ride. I don't care for our main characters and how they relate with each other. I think I mentioned before this is following 3 estranged siblings, and I know that I'm incredibly fortunate in having such a great relationship with all of my siblings, so those relationships are really hard for me to read about, especially when they're just so mean to each other. All 3 of them are just so mean, and they think the worst about their siblings, and they're constantly just saying and thinking these incredibly out-of-pocket things about their siblings. So that's like a bummer for me to read about. So that's a little annoying because I feel like, you know, they should be consoling each other and coming together with their mutual grief of just having lost their mother, but they're making shots about one of them is addicted to drugs, and the things that her siblings say about her are just completely awful. And then one of them is just like a rich guy, and he just looks down on his siblings that aren't as financially well off as him, and then they think that he's just such a pompous jerk, and it's just they're all thinking such horrible things about each other the whole entire time. So that's frustrating, but I am still intrigued about the tapes and the mystery and the family mystery of it all, so I am enjoying that one. We'll still continue to listen to that via audiobook. And then for my physical book, I really tore through The Haunting of Velkwood yesterday. My last update for this one, I had pretty much read chapter 1, so that was not even 20 pages. And then last night I started, you know, I didn't start the book, but I basically did because I was on chapter 2, and I read quite a bit of it. That puts me at about 60% of the way through this one. I just think this book is so perfectly paced. So this book, we are following our main character Talitha, and she grew up in Velkwood. It's a very small, non-interesting, very mundane little town. However, it's not so mundane anymore because one day the whole entire town just becomes like a ghost. So hear me out. Talitha and 2 of her friends from her hometown, they go off to college one night just as normal. You know, it's a Sunday, they're going back to university, but on that Monday they realize that every single person that was on the block, and the block itself has turned into like a ghost. Like no one can get into this block. Everyone who was on the street is presumed missing. So it's like this huge supernatural phenomenon. It says on the dust jacket that the block of homes disappeared behind a near impenetrable wall that only the 3 survivors, Talitha included, could enter. So it's been this whole conspiracy. You know, everyone is thinking, is this proof of the afterlife? Like what is happening here? It's definitely paranormal, and this huge event has really impacted Talitha throughout her whole life, not only because her mother and her sister were left behind in that vale and presumed dead, but also because, you know, people think of her as an oddity. At the start of this novel, Talitha is approached by a researcher who wants to pay her a lot of money to try and enter the vicinity and see if she can go into the neighborhood and get some answers. And Talitha is just really hard pressed for money at the moment, so she agrees for financial reasons, and also because she, you know, genuinely misses her sister, her mother, and she also kind of wants to find out some answers, right? So they go back to the neighborhood, and Talitha tries to enter. She can enter into her neighborhood, and it quickly becomes apparent through the novel that things were not all right in this like idyllic suburban American neighborhood, and the things that Talitha and her friends were running from were things that were happening long before that supernatural event occurred. So like I mentioned before, this is just super well paced. Like last night I was reading it, I'm like, okay, I'll read another chapter, and I'd read the other chapter and be like, okay, but I need to know what happens next. So I really tore through the pages of this one, and I definitely anticipate on finishing it today. The only reason why I didn't finish it last night was because I was tired and I had to go to bed. So I am just so excited to continue this one, continue my audiobook as well. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm hoping to finish at least one of those books today, and also pick up another physical book, because just all of the great books that I managed to pick up at the library yesterday. So we will go through those a little bit as well, because I'm so excited. Now, you might have seen some other books in the haul. We are just going to be focusing on the horror picks because this is my horror-centric vlog, and I'm gonna want to read some more horror this weekend. So now I have even more titles to add to my never-ending TBR. First up, we have Cunning Folk by Adam Neville, and I really enjoy this author's work for the most part. There's one that I I haven't cared for, but the other books that I've read by this author I've all really enjoyed. So I'm excited to pick this one up. I don't think this is necessarily, I know it's not his newest release for sure. I don't know how old this release was, but it is new to my library, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. So we have We Ate the Dark by Mallory Pearson. This is a haunted house story, I believe, just based on the cover. I feel like this cover definitely reminds me, both the font and just the whole like cover layout and design reminds me of other horror books, especially that I've enjoyed in the past. So I'm intrigued. Again, I think this is like a haunted house, a character's coming back to rehash like the secrets of their small town and their own personal past. So we have this one, and then we also have Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. This is about a family vacation. It's in the idyllic Italian countryside, and this one says that it is beautifully unhinged and deeply satisfying, and it's a sharp twist on the classic haunted house story. So there's another haunted house story set in Italy as well. So I'm intrigued about that and like the family reunion of it all for this one. And then we also have, last but not least, A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock, and this one is like a Frankenstein retelling, I believe, and it also just has like such a gorgeous springy cover. Like I love spring horror covers. This one is just absolutely beautiful. So I'm super excited that I have a lot of books on deck for when I finish The Haunting of Velkwood and want to pick up another physical book. So yeah, definitely looking forward to those. And I'm also just in general looking forward to the weekend. I'm looking forward to the weekend. It's just the weather's been beautiful and I'm just really excited. I'm really excited for this weekend. You know, I love Pizza Friday. I love Pizza Friday. I love this new tradition that me and my partner have created, because it's nice to have like something specific to look forward to every single weekend, even if it's literally just homemade dinner and a movie. That's gonna be fun. But me and my partner also I have hooked him onto Paleo Pines as well. We talked about that I think a little bit in the last vlog, maybe, or 2 vlogs ago. It's a cozy farming sim, but you are a rancher and you befriend dinosaurs to help you out on your farm, and it's so much fun. Me and my partner have been playing that like nonstop, so a lot of that is on the docket for this weekend, as well as reading, because I have a ton of good horror books to read. So that is what I'm going to go do right now. Either pick up my physical book or I'll play a little bit of Paleo Pines while listening to an audiobook. You can't see him, but I can see Obi getting ready to pick up one of his squeaky toys. So it's a good thing I'm already done talking about the books, because either way this clip needs to end, because he's going to start in with the ambiance squeaking sounds soon. So I will talk to y'all later on this weekend with another reading update. Okay, so I have finished both of the books that I was previously talking about. I finished the first one, my physical book, The Haunting of Velkwood, last night, and I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was such a unique haunted story. I thought the whole premise of the entire town becoming kind of a ghost and like the exploration to try and get into the town was super well done and very interesting. This was definitely a well-paced book. It's definitely one where, you know, I feel like you could sit down and finish it in one sitting if you wanted. I almost did, but yeah, I enjoyed this one, and I will definitely be checking out more by this author because she has won, I believe, 2 Bram Stoker awards now. So I already have read one thing by her, Reluctant Immortals, but there's so many more things on her backlog that I would like to go back and read because I really enjoyed this one. And then for my audiobook, I finished that up today. Home is knows where the bodies are. This one was okay. I will say that pretty early on, at like the 10% mark, I was like, I think this is what's going to happen. And then by the 20% mark, I had really cemented myself in that theory that I felt like I knew what was happening, and I was right. So if you do read a lot of thrillers, I think you'll be able to kind of get the twist on this one. And in fact, there was like another element, a very, very small element that was like more of a twist that I felt like we should have focused more on, like that aspect and that character. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but just there was one part of the reveal that was like a very small part of the reveal that I thought was more engaging and could have added more to the overall story. But while I did guess this one, I enjoyed like the characters figuring it out. So know that going in. I know the blurb on the front of this is actually from Colleen Hoover and says that this author is the queen of twists and that this is like such a big twist. I don't think it's going to be a twist. I mean, I've seen like a twist very similar to this one before and I was able to guess it. So I don't think it's one, or if you read a lot of thrillers, you'll probably be able to guess it. But I do still think that this was like a fun popcorn thriller. It was like a fun ride, and just, you know, the siblings, I hated the way that they spoke about each other, and that really like didn't like resolve itself by the end. They still have a strained relationship, they're working on it. But the thing that bothered me the most about this one was that we don't get any sort of like reconciliation with the way two of the siblings treated their sibling, who they just constantly called a junkie and like really treated her so poorly because of her addiction. So that was something that I thought was just a little bit mishandled. Overall though, this was a fun popcorn thriller, and I really enjoyed the audiobook because it had multiple narrators, so I felt like that really helped differentiate characters and kind of add a sense of suspense to the story, especially when I was listening to it. So I am done with those two books, and I have two more books that I'm going to pick up and read this weekend. It is Saturday, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, but for my physical book, I will be going ahead and reading The Haunting in the Arctic by C.J. Cooke. This one came out in February, and this is about like a haunted whaling ship, I believe. So I'm intrigued, and I think we followed like two timelines, one in like 1900 and then the other one in present day, as they're trying to figure out like what's happening on this ship. So I figured, since The Haunting of Velkwood was an unconventional haunting story that I really enjoyed, I figured, you know, let's try a ghost ship out. So this is going to be my physical book. I did start it already, but I'm only 15 pages in, so you know, I don't have much to say on it, but this will be my physical book. I'm looking forward to reading it. And then for my audiobook, I had put up an Instagram poll seeing like what book I should pick up next, and it was between Diavola and A Botanical Daughter, and the poll ended up being exactly 50-50 split. So I went ahead and picked up Diavola by Jeneva Thorne because this one I also have the audiobook, so I'll be flipping back and forth. Like I said, I already have a physical book picked out, but this one will be primarily audiobook, but I do have a physical copy in case I want to go back and forth on it. This is another haunted house story, but this one also is like not just like a typical family moves into a haunted house story. This is about like a family reunion, and they go to this villa, and just it's a very dysfunctional family, and that kind of impacts the haunting as well, I think. So this will be my audiobook, and then I also have my physical book, and we'll you know, go ahead and have a good rest of our weekend. But yeah, that's gonna be the little reading update, keeping it short and sweet for today. I'm gonna go hang out with my partner and my dogs, and I will talk to y'all later. Okay, so a little bit of a post-weekend reading update. I am still currently reading the same two books that I mentioned last update. Not quite sure when I updated. I think I updated on either Saturday or Sunday, not both, I know. But the weekend is now over, and I am still currently reading the two books that I mentioned I would pick up. So I'm not very far into A Haunting in the Arctic at all. Not that there's anything wrong with this book. However, it is going to be a little bit slower paced, and it is historical. So we're building up at least 2, there might be 3 different timelines just based on like the history of the ship and the weird things that are happening there. And with that comes some exposition and some building up of characters and like why they would go to this boat after all. So we are following, you know, at least 2 perspectives and why our main characters are going to the boat. So it's a little bit of a slow build, but I am still intrigued. I just haven't really been picking this one up when I've been wanting to read, because I've also been reading Diavola, which I'm really enjoying. So I'm about 40 pages into this one and I'm enjoying it so far. Just, you know, I haven't really gotten too much into it where I can give an in-depth reading update, but I am really enjoying Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. This one I do have the audiobook for, however, I am reading it mostly physically. I'm enjoying it more that way. The audiobook is good. There's nothing wrong with it, just I'm enjoying reading this physically. So I believe it was a couple vlogs ago now where I had my dogs choose my TBR and I read The House of Last Resort by Christopher Golden, and that was about a couple who moved to the idyllic Italian countryside into a house that has a very dark history. And for that one I enjoyed it, but I had said that I wanted more like actual Italian culture. I wanted more Italian language and just like feeling like you were actually in Italy. This book is definitely giving that. I know I've said it before and I'm going to say it again because at heart I am still that very annoying study abroad college student, but I did live in Florence, Italy for a summer doing my college's study abroad program. So I definitely love a book that's set there, especially when it's horror, because there's just something so simultaneously beautiful and eerie about, like, you can use a bunch of like the older Catholic structures and just the architecture and like there's a lot that can be played off. It's both beautiful and old and historic and a little bit creepy at times too, if you're really thinking about like the histories of places and all of the, you know, natural events and natural disasters and just history that Italy has gone through. So I am really enjoying this one. We're following our main character, Anna, as she's trying to survive a family vacation, and they're staying at this villa that just has like a very dark past. No one in the surrounding town wants to talk about it, but I am really enjoying their daytime outings to towns like Siena. It's fun. I've been to Siena before, so being able to read details about that town and just be able to really picture myself there, as well as I'm enjoying this dysfunctional family dynamic, because I feel like a lot of times, and I even mentioned it earlier on in this vlog with Home is Where the Bodies Are, sometimes there is a dysfunctional family, and when you are reading their interactions, you don't even understand how they can like each other. Like, I think it's a very hard character dynamic to write about a dysfunctional family where there is love there has been love in the past, and there is still love, but there is just complex relationships. This is doing it really well, because at no time do I think the characters genuinely hate each other. They do have some strained relationships. There are like some out of pocket comments being said because it is Anna and her parents and her brother and his boyfriend and then her sister and her husband. So there's a lot of family dynamics going on. Sometimes there are just comments that are made about each other, like very snippy comments and comments with like a lot of family history and backstory, but then there are also really sweet and tender moments too. So I think this does a really good job of exploring that dysfunction and realizing that maybe the relationships aren't in the best place, but understanding that these people are, you know, flesh and blood, and they are family, and they do like each other and they stick together. Like, you understand why they go on vacations every single year together. It's a very good dynamic there. So I'm really enjoying this one, and today I am just planning on reading so I can have a reading update for y'all later on in this vlog. I would like to finish at least one of these books before the vlog ends, and I know I mentioned that I wanted to pick up my NetGalley arc of the essay barns, and I still want to do that, but I do also have an uploading schedule to stick to, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll get a lot of reading done today and then give an update a little bit later, letting you know how I feel about these books, if I've picked anything else up. But I've really been having a great week reading and focusing on brand new horror releases. So I'm gonna get back to reading, and I will talk to y'all later with another reading update. Hey friends, happy Wednesday. I do have a reading update for y'all. I finished Diavola by Jennifer Thorne and I did enjoy this one. I will say the latter half of the book was not as excellently paced as the first half. And I would say especially in like the very last few chapters, there's something that happens with the narrative that really breaks up the pacing, at least for me, and kind of changes a lot about what I liked about the story. So I won't go into spoilers there, but just there's a little bit of pacing that just detracted from my enjoyment a little bit, but overall I really loved this one. I have just been reading some really great haunted house horror this year, so I really enjoyed this. It definitely has the Italian vibes, the family vacation vibes, and you know, Anna's family becomes more and more infuriating and unlikable throughout this narrative, but I thought this book did a really good job of capturing like a very lush gothic haunted house. It was very funny, satirical at times, very scary at times, so overall I enjoyed this one and I'll definitely be checking out more by the author. This author also wrote Loot, which I read last year, and they're very, very different books. I enjoyed both of them, but I definitely think that's cool that you're never going to know, I feel like, what you're going to get from this author next, because stylistically, like everything about these books too, just in terms of narration and storytelling, I thought the tone was very different. Good in both, but just very, very different than what I was expecting for this author's next release, and I really enjoyed it. So thankfully the Italian haunted house book delivered, and the second book that I've been kind of working my way through is actually going to be a DNF. It's going to be a DNF for right now. There's nothing necessarily wrong with this book. It's just, it's not gripping me. I'm not in the mood to like pick it up when I do have time to read. I'm gravitating always towards like the other books that I have on my TBR and not this one. So I think in particular this one would be excellent to read when it's very, very cold outside, when it's snowy outside. I think that would be a perfect atmospheric read for this book. And today the high is going to be in the 80s, which is just crazy. So definitely for me, it's just not the right time of year to read this book. I'll definitely try and revisit this one in the winter. I think that would be a really good time to read this book. It's just not capturing me at the moment, and I have so many other books on my radar, so many other books that I want to read. I don't want to struggle through a book that's just not connecting with me at the moment. So again, nothing wrong with it, just not the right time for me. So I will be picking up, again, we're sticking with the new horror releases. For my audiobook, I am picking up Thirst by Marina Yuszcuk. It's translated by Heather Cleary. This is a gripping tale full of queer representation and lush lyrical passages, all while exploring death with an air of nihilism. So I'm intrigued about this one. Sapphic vampires, and especially covers that really take like some art and do something with the cover design based on like already existing paintings. Diavola even had this as well. I love vampire novels. I love vampire fiction, especially like more of like a literary take on vampires. And this says it has echoes of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and it's written in the vein of feminist gothic writers like Shirley Jackson, Daphne du Maurier, and Carmen Maria Machado. So I'm really looking forward to picking this one up. Thirst will be my audiobook. And then for my physical book, we're just kind of going to go with the flow because so many library books, so little time. I actually have to go to the library today and pick up some holds. I'm going to return some books, and then I also have an errand to do in the area. So I will be going to the library today and getting even more library books. So I definitely want to pick a physical book from my library TBR because I have quite a few books checked out now at the moment. So I'm thinking either We Ate the Dark by Mallory Pearson. This is another haunted house novel, and honestly, I know I've read a couple of them. Not necessarily haunted houses, but well, one was a haunted house, one was like a haunted neighborhood. I've read quite a few hauntings in this vlog, but most of them have gone really well for me, and I do like a pretty chunky haunted house story, so I could do this one. And then I also have Cunning Folk by Adam L.G. Neville, and this one it's an author that I really enjoy. This one actually I don't think is like a brand new release. I think this one is, I wouldn't even necessarily call it backlist because I think it came out within the past couple of years, but definitely not like a brand new release. But this is a folk horror, and it could be fun, and it could be like a very springy read, and you know, I probably should read it soon then, because with it being in like the 80s today, I think spring is over with, at least here. At least that's what it feels like. We had like one gotten 1 or 2 weeks of like lovely spring weather, and now it's just getting so unbearably hot. So you know, any spring reads, I suppose. I mean, not necessarily, folk horror isn't necessarily spring. I also feel like a lot of folk horror has like very wintry vibes as well, but I don't know, something about this tells me it would be a good spring read. So maybe we'll be picking up one of these, and then also reading Thirst on audiobook. So that's the update for today. It's going to be a very laid back day. We're gonna stay inside because again, it's very hot. It's very hot, and other than me going to the library, running an errand, we're gonna stay indoors. We're gonna stay indoors. And I don't even know what it was. I don't know if this is just like a random like very hot day, or if it's just going to keep getting hotter and hotter, but I feel like the past couple of days were really beautiful, and then I woke up today and it was just unbearably hot. So yeah, unfortunately I live in the south, so you know, that's just, it's gonna be hot until like October, which is not fun. Luckily I work inside and I work from home, so we don't have to venture out into the stifling heat too much. But that's today's reading update. I am going to go listen to some of my audiobook and then pick out what physical book I'm going to pick up next, and I will talk to y'all later with another reading update. Hey friends, happy Friday. The last time I came on the vlog and talked to y'all about the books I was reading, I was trying to figure out which physical book I was going to pick up, and it was between the Adam Neville book and then the We Ate the Dark book. So I read the first chapter of both of those books and picked out which one that I wanted to read, and I picked We Ate the Dark by Mallory Pearson, and I am really obsessed with this one. This one is chunky. It's over 400 pages and definitely not the one I was anticipating picking up, just because when I'm trying to decide between two books, I'd say it's far more common for me to go with an author that I'm familiar with, just because I know I like their writing style, rather than a new to me author. But this one just really drew me in from the first chapter, or rather I think there's a prologue and then the first chapter. This one really drew me in, and I am just so hooked. I started it yesterday, read over 100 pages. Like I mentioned before, this is pretty chunky, so reading, you know, about 100 and some change pages, that puts me at 25% of the way through this one, and I am just really engaged with the story. I think I mentioned in one of my earlier reading updates for this vlog that this was a haunted house story. It's not a haunted house story. I was just kind of assuming that based on some things I had heard about it, and then also the cover. But this is not a haunted house story. It is a little bit haunting adjacent though, but 5 years after Sophia Lyon disappeared, her remains are found stuffed into the hollow of a tree, bursting through the floorboards of an abandoned house in the woods. The women who loved her flock home to the North Carolina hills to face their grief. So we're following those women. They were all childhood best friends. They all grew up in this small town together, and one of our main characters, Frankie, she is actually Sophia's twin. So we have Frankie, who's dealing with the disappearance and now loss of her twin sister. We're also following Cass and Poppy, who also were best friends with Sophia growing up. And we are also following Maria, who is new to this very small town, but due to reasons of her own that may or may not be paranormal, she really wants to connect with these women and help them with their grief. So Frankie has lived in this town. She never left the town, especially after her sister's disappearance. Cass and Poppy come back for the funeral services, and they all decide to try and figure out what happened to Sophia, because Sophia was labeled as a runaway until 5 years later, you know, when her body was found. So they decide to band together, figure out what happened to Sophia, who killed her, because there was foul play involved, and the police really aren't doing anything about it. So they band together, these childhood friends and also this newcomer with secrets, paranormal secrets of her own, and they're going to try and figure out what happened to Sophia and get some closure and some justice in whatever way they can for the loss of their friend. So I know this takes place in North Carolina. I don't think that's necessarily Southern, but this does feel very much like Southern Gothic. Definitely small town horror. It's paranormal horror. There are things happening, and we have, you know, the character of Sophia, whether that's her ghost in actuality because someone may or may not be able to see ghosts, or, you know, just Sophia haunting the narrative just as like a narrative device. It feels very Southern Gothic. So again, you know, it's North Carolina. I believe also this is kind of adjacent to Appalachia. They mention mountains a lot, and I think those are the mountains around there. I'm gonna feel foolish, but like it is in like the mountainous regions of North Carolina. So it's very small town, very, I would say Southern Gothic, even though it's not technically Southern Gothic, but it's very adjacent. Mountain Gothic, if you will. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I'm enjoying the characterization. This is very character heavy, very slow. There's also like purple prose as well, that really works for me. I'm very obsessed with this one. So just as an example of like the incredibly descriptive writing that you have throughout this, one of the passages that I really enjoyed is, well, to see her first firefly of the season, to lay her head on Frankie's shoulder, to press against Poppy's back, to feel the rise and fall of their breaths through the bone, to laugh, to feel pretty and loved in a feral sort of way, to hold a cool glass to her cheek, sweating, to suck the rind of a lemon, for summer to emerge and stay forever, to come home, to never feel the need to leave again. And what did she have in the end? Just the ache of anticipation. So this is really hitting for me. We have, you know, close-knit group of characters that have kind of drifted apart, and they're coming together to kind of get that closure and figure out what happened to Sophia, and, you know, also get closure for that, but get closure for their own like forgotten friendships and maybe a little bit of romance as well. This is also very sapphic. I think multiple, if not all, I would say all of our main characters pretty much probably identify as queer. It's not stated as such on the page for all of them, but those are the vibes that I'm getting. There are also some witchy elements and some found family elements, some ghostly elements. So all in all, I'm really enjoying this one. I'm very obsessed. I know that I said that I'd also pick up my audiobook of Thirst. I still do want to do that. I think I'm going to table that though and leave that for another vlog, because I want to finish this book. I want to finish this book and I want to gush about it more. I have a really good feeling about this one. I'm really knocking it out of the park this month with horror that I'm really loving and enjoying. So I do want to focus on this. There'll probably be one more update in this vlog, but it'll hopefully be my final review of this. I know it's very thick. I know it's very chunky, but you know, I'm just absolutely flying through this one. So I definitely think that's doable. So that's my plan for today, is just to read as much as possible of this and get completely immersed in this small town setting. So those are my plans for the day. Next update is going to be the last update in this vlog, because I need to finish out this vlog. I was editing it last night and it's getting on the long side for my vlogs. So I'm going to go read more of this, hopefully finish it, give you all my thoughts, and I will talk to y'all later with another reading update. Okay, so I finally finished We Ate the Dark by Mallory Pearson, and I really enjoyed this one. I will say I looked at both Goodreads and Storygraph. The average reviews and ratings for this one are a little low. So I hesitate, even though I did enjoy it, to recommend this to like everyone. I think there are definitely books on my channel that I, you know, would suggest anyone to read, and I think that they have like a very large appeal. This one I think definitely needs to find this audience, because, you know, when I was looking through some of those lower rated reviews, I totally got what they were saying. They made fair points, and I totally understood why things in here didn't work for a lot of people. I definitely think that the first half of this book was stronger than the second half, and in particular I think this one just didn't didn't really stick the landing. This is very, very long. It's over 400 pages, and with all of that building up of our characters and the world and the magic and the horror, you want like a really big bombastic ending, or just an ending that feels very satisfying because you've spent a lot of pages getting to know these characters, getting to know the story, and wanting to find out what happens. So the ending for me, it didn't quite stick the landing, but I still really enjoyed my time reading this one. The writing in here and the prose in here was beautiful. I think maybe sometimes just specific tiny little parts like the purple prose of it all kind of overshadowed the plot, but overall this was just very excellently written. I think if you like Southern Gothic stories, if you like small towns, if you like witches, I think you should at least check this one out, because this one definitely goes in a very strange place with magic and using like witchcraft as like a horror, and having not just paranormal horror but like magical supernatural horror as well. And it goes in a very strange direction that I think is so cool, that I wish that like more horror books would really delve into that strangeness. I don't want to give it away because I definitely think when you realize what's going on, it's definitely a cool concept. So overall, I really enjoyed this one. I would definitely check out more by the author. I believe this is a debut, so you know, the things that I mentioned that didn't really strike home run for me, I think definitely with this author's future works, if she writes more books, I'll definitely be checking them out, because again, I really enjoyed the very strange, bizarre, witchy, magical way this horror book went. But that is going to be it for this vlog. This vlog was definitely a long time coming. It spanned a lot of time, but with the conclusion of this last horror new release book, I just think it's time to wrap up the vlog. Definitely a longer one, but thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel for all of the bookish horror and cozy gaming content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!